It's time for Scripts and Scriptures Disclaimers. Jean Verhoeven here with some very important information. My panel and I just finished watching this film. Some people use this show to see if they want to see the movie, and some people watch the movie first and then listen to us. The list is available at wicxradio.org. If you're part of the first group, then beware, there are plot spoilers in the following discussion. We also have to tell you, while we think they are smart, witty, insightful, and profound, our opinions are solely ours and do not reflect the management, staff, or board of WICX or affiliated radio groups, or maybe even you. However, our panel is very proud of the results. We are not theologians or apologists, but we are movie fans and hope you are too. Enjoy. Ready? Lights, camera, action!
Take one. That clapboard tells us it's time for Scripts and Scriptures. I'm Jean Verhoeven. We will be watching spiritually inspired films and shows and discussing their quality, insight, value, and enjoyment. I'm so happy to welcome my panel, Susan Stevens, Charlie Saletti, Lloyd Kintz, and host of his own radio show about movies as The Real Turns, Daniel Saletti. The Way is a 2010 American-Spanish drama film directed, produced, and written by Emilio Estevez, and starring Martin Sheen, his father, Deborah Kara Unger, James Nesbitt, Jorik van Wageningen, I think, and Renee Estevez. The film honors the Camino de Santiago and promotes the traditional pilgrimage. Saying he did not want the film to appeal to only one demographic, Emilio Estevez called the film pro-people, pro-life, and not anti-anything. Dr. Thomas Avery, Martin Sheen, is an American ophthalmologist who goes to France following the death of his adult son, Daniel, played by Emilio Estevez, killed in the Pyrenees during a storm while walking the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James, a Christian pilgrimage route to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, Spain. Tom's purpose is initially to retrieve his son's body. However, in a combination of grief and homage to his son, Tom decides to walk the ancient spiritual trail where his son died, taking Daniel's ashes with him. While walking the Camino, Tom meets others from around the world, a friendly Dutch extrovert, a Canadian woman claiming one reason for being there but revealing another, an Irish travel writer with writer's block, all looking for greater meaning in their lives. Tom occasionally has visions of Daniel alive and smiling among other people. Tom starts out the journey being cold to his fellow pilgrims, but over the course of their journey, he eventually opens up to them. This is a great movie. I think we all enjoyed it, and it's a true setting, although the story is fictional, although I think it's taken from different stories. On the way to the airport, Daniel says to his father, "You don't choose a life, you live one." Is this true? Is this false? Is this different for Catholics?
I think it's the same for everybody. That really things happen and change your life. You may have chosen what you wanted life to be, but this emphasizes the way things change. They're unexpected, and they just don't work out the way you
That's true. A lot of us end up in fields we didn't study.
I mean, you have only one life, and you choose what you want to do with it. To paraphrase a film, you don't only live twice, so...
So don't miss out.
Exactly.
Well, and isn't it, God gives us people certain gifts of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And Yos was kindness. And, you know, you could see the And for maybe Tom, it was the intellectual, but everyone had their gifts. So,
Right.
And that's the life you should live.
What did Jack call Yost? Kindness was instinct for him?
Right.
And you have to say his full name. Joost from Amsterdam.
Yost from Amsterdam, yeah.
And Jack from Ireland.
That's right. What made Tom decide to take the pilgrimage with, in quotes, Daniel, or Daniel's cremains?
Well, as the resident Daniel here, I'd like to answer that. Basically, I think he says that he was not close with his son.
Not after his wife died.
Not after his wife died. And oddly enough, and in some cases, you can be closer to someone in death than in life sometimes. And so maybe this was his one chance because everything was going wrong. After the wife died, he backed out. He threw his son away basically and said, "Well, maybe this is my one last chance to either say goodbye and or do a father-son bonding thing."
I like that. I don't think he could say goodbye.
Yeah.
Right. Very hard. And I mean this in the general sense of taking the pilgrimage. Could you do it, and would you do it?
I'd love to. It just looks great. I'd bicycle a lot. And
Yeah,
I did the Missouri Katy Trail across most of Missouri, but I was very soft. I didn't stay overnight anyplace.
Oh.
Short rides.
I'm with you and Joost from Amsterdam. You can bike this thing? That's just ridiculous, man.
Well, I know somebody who might be e-biking.
Yes, and I was looking at the accommodations, and it's a little better than, it's in between that upper end and the lower end. It's like middle, like you have your own bathroom type of thing.
Yeah. That would work.
That's true. The walking seems like that would be doable, but then the living in the hostels and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I don't know if you reach a certain point when
I
you
was
don't wanna do
18
that.
maybe,
Yeah.
but...
Exactly.
Okay, so would you do it? Could you do it? But would you go alone? Would you go with a partner? Would you go with a group? Some of each? Why?
Oh, heck no, I wouldn't do it alone. Are you
No?
kidding? That,
Well, remember, it's a pilgrimage.
I know, but half the time you saw they weren't praying 24/7. They were having a ball. No, I feel like I would drive myself nuts, either, thinking of what the heck am I doing, or I'd have probably at least 15 imaginary people walking around with me. Not naming any names, but
Okay, then.
But no. Honestly, I think it would go a lot faster, too. I mean, you go on any trip, like a road trip or whatever, it's much better if you have someone to talk to, because then you can talk about things, and you can talk about why you're there. Although, we did see one brief scene, Tom did have cell service, so you could just keep calling people if you were alone.
Oh, cell phone.
He had
I
cell
suppose
service.
you could. I suppose
I
you
mean,
could.
just every hour, talk to...
Go through your contact list.
Go through your contact list, yeah.
But I think some people are trying to, find the answers to things, and
Yeah, it's true that, well, if it's a contemplative sort of journey you'd like to make, then alone is clearly better. Also, if you go in a group, sometimes you deprive yourself of some of the experience that the people in the film had. It's the chance meeting along the way of somebody that you would never meet if you were in your own group,
right.
which tends to be closed to outsiders.
Yeah.
and sometimes they're put there for a reason, I think, in life.
Yep, I really think there's no accident, and maybe the Holy Spirit got all these characters together.
Okay, as informed Catholics, we know that cremains must be treated like a body. Immediately after the funeral, ashes must be interned in the ground or a wall, but not separated or spread out in nature or water. In this case, remembering it's a story, was it important for Tom to leave the ashes, along the way?
But isn't it, well, for Catholics, I've gone to a cathedral and the bone of something and the leg bone of this saint. So they were clearly...
They're saints.
Okay.
That's why they can make relics and all that kind of stuff.
So yeah, there's pieces of them.
Yeah.
So they're not interned.
Yeah, but you're just
look at Pio there. He's fully exposed right there.
True.
And looks great, I might add.
All
Yeah,
right.
well, and the spirit of that is that they don't want to do anything that would be considered desecration of a body, which is the temple of the soul. But the in this case, what Tom was doing was honoring his son. So it certainly, even if he was in violation of a technical rule, it certainly wasn't the violation of the intent of the
Right.
of the,
And he said he was only a Christmas and Easter Catholic at
Right.
that point.
yeah.
Okay, other than comic relief, of which there was a lot with him, just who is Joost
From Amsterdam.
from Amsterdam? He just keeps popping up every time Tom turned around. Who is Joost?
He's the one guy that you at first hate seeing every single day of your life. Oh, God, he's back.
What did Tom say? Wears off quickly.
Yeah, he says that from the what's her name? Sarah? He wears off quick. She wears off quick. But no, I think he was the foil for Tom's serious, cold attitude. He needed some kind of really stupidly ridiculous guy to hang out with and make his spirits a little lighter. I mean, I certainly feel like I'm the Joost from Amsterdam to a lot of people, because I've met a lot of straight arrow people, and I say, look, you need someone ridiculous in your life, and I'm your ridiculous.
But poor old Joost, he was sabotaging his own pilgrimage every time he wanted to lose weight. All he did was eat and drink. Sarah, she was supposedly giving up cigarettes, and she was sabotaging herself all the way.
But the ending fixes it.
I think it's great that they show that you don't step 3 steps onto the Camino and you're a saint all of a sudden. They struggled the whole way and they weren't always successful.
Joost reminds me of Falstaff.
The Falstaff. These pilgrims meet a lot of interesting people along the way in the towns and in the inns and so forth and so on. But what a beautiful way to greet
I
a
love
pilgrim
that.
or anyone. Basque, I think. He says, "We were expecting you." Other than sore feet, why do you think Tom ended up in that Basque village?
To get away from Joost from Amsterdam.
Well, that's true. He did kind of leave Joost on the trail, but was there something that he took away from that particular town? Dinner and all that?
Oh, maybe it was just another chance to meet another traveler who would become a friend of his and part of the gang, which was Sarah, the smoker.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Water everywhere. Every movie that we watch has a scene with water. And sometimes it's almost like it's another character.
Right.
What did it mean when Tom ends up in the drink retrieving Daniel's backpack, and technically he was retrieving Daniel as well? What was that? Was that indicative of anything specific?
It's hard to say. But I mean, since this is fictional, you can say that everything was put there for some sort of reason. It is true that at the very end, Daniel winds up in the ocean, which is where all the water flows. So it might have been just some sort of foreshadowing that he was destined for the great ocean. But other than that, I don't know if they were going for anything specific.
Oh, I took it as Tom couldn't save Daniel in the beginning, but he saved Daniel.
Oh.
Ashes.
that's
It's his
Whoa,
way of-
nice tie-in.
He could do something.
Nice
Because
tie-in.
he was feeling so helpless before.
helpless, right.
And you realize that scene where he goes in the drink, Tom is leaning up against a bridge, unbuckles his pack, and then the bag just basically leaves him.
Right.
Maybe it was Daniel pulling himself off the bridge, saying, "I'm meant to go in the water."
Yeah.
Well,
You never know, I guess.
or it was just there to show, to what lengths Tom would go to to keep him with him. But
Right. Can a walker become a pilgrim, and can a pilgrim become just a walker?
I know when I'm exercising on my bicycle, I transition back and forth between pilgrim and walking.
That's interesting.
I've got times when I'm really into it with nature and the destination and what other and other times I'm just tired and ready to get to the end of my ride. But I think the transition is a part of the movement of the journey.
Good example.
And it was said that Tom was not fit to do the walk, but yet he proved to everyone he could.
Right.
And certainly
Man with a mission.
Joost from Amsterdam was not fit either.
Or the smoker.
The smoker.
Walk.
But you saw there's a scene later on where they have to run and chase someone. They're booking.
They're
booking pretty fast. And I want to say real quick, as the other residential movie person here, you are. I don't want to offend the zombie community when you say walker.
Enough. Boom. Yeah, I know. If you see me out on my bike, I'm probably in the middle of some prayer at some point.
15 miles or whatever.
Oh, so you can bike and be a pilgrim.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. Your day's coming. There was the plaque up on the top of the mountain. It said, "Where the path of the wind crosses that of the stars." Is it just a windy hilltop, or is there another meaning to that? Probably sounded better in Spanish, but
I don't know. I took the symbolism. Do you ever see Mary and there's always the crown of stars?
seven stars.
And the wind is the Holy Spirit. But, no.
Oh, I think you might have something there. That's very good. We'll call him the Jewish priest because he was walking along with the yarmulke. Why was the Jewish priest, he was so aware of how many lapsed Catholics were out there on the trail with him, and how did he know or guess that Tom was a lapsed Catholic?
I think because people see the yarmulke, it starts as a conversation piece.
No, but how did he know that Tom was the lapsed?
I know. I know. It starts with the yarmulke.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
It starts as a conversation piece. Talk about, oh, you're a rabbi, no, I'm a priest. Oh, well, and then it all starts. It starts from there. It's a ripple effect. So it's like you start with interest. You find out he's a priest. Oh, I went to church too, but I don't anymore. Oh, well, then hey, let's talk.
But do you think the priest had, he picked up on something in Tom where he just kind of knew, oh, you're a Catholic, aren't you? And he says,
well, that, and he did mention he only went to church Easter and Christmas. So, I mean, that's pretty much saying, oh, well, hey, you don't do this anymore as much as you did. And he wants to talk to people. And so he introduced himself just as Frank, not Father Frank, not
right,
Reverend Frank, whatever.
But he gives him that rosary, and he accepts it, I think, just being polite, but by the time the trip is over, he's glad he had it.
And he had plenty more.
Joost, good old Joost had his drugs. The Canadian had her cigarettes, and the priest had a pocket full of rosaries. What cause did all that serve?
Well, I guess they all had something that they could share, or many of these characters had something that they could share.
Right.
And so the priest had rosaries. Joost, had drugs, and
Pick your poison, or
and Sarah had cigarettes.
I can't speak for Canadians, but the other two are supposedly stereotypes, you could say. So maybe it was just something to insert into, like, this is what their characters are.
Maybe, but don't you think they were all... Well, I mean, some were not good, but they were all some sort of support system, something they had to lean on.
But all of them had things that were near and dear to them, and they're willing to share it, as you said.
And we're willing to share.
Share something that's near and dear to them.
Right. As time goes on, Tom still... It doesn't seem like he wants to let go. he changes, but really at one point he becomes more cynical and a little snarky instead of going into the Zen or healed or transformed like some of the other pilgrims. Was this just, the grief talking, or is he regretting having to mingle with those pilgrims?
I think it's a journey story, and we're seeing how people are transformed from beginning to end and how they respond to different stimuluses as they have advanced in their journey. It's very fascinating. Journey stories are part of our literature, and this one does a good job of showing the transition of the characters.
And remembering, not only was Tom going through grief, but he had no intention, no idea of, no plan of doing this. And then all of a sudden it took him a couple false starts because he couldn't find the road, but all of a sudden he's on the road.
But I think also it's this a pilgrimage, I was always told, doesn't change you. It allows you to become the person God meant for you to become.
Oh, that's nice. I like that.
So it's that's letting go all the outer things to let his self come through.
Another one of these characters that they met along the way, El Ramon, and I think El Ramon was Spain's answer to the Bates Motel. What did that experience do to or for this group of characters?
It's a bonding experience.
It's a bonding experience. No joke.
It's certainly a bonding
They
experience.
were so scared out of their minds. El Ramon.
Now you have the official stamp from El Ramon.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, and when
he's a little more
Tom was
comic
going
relief.
upstairs to check about the cost, they all wanted to go with him. He asked, "Are you 5?" And he said, "No, we're just scared."
I would have been too. Oh dear! But
And then when they see the problem, boom, cut,
I
they're
mean,
gone.
that's always been some of the best moments of trips, international trips or whatever. You just meet so many interesting people, and this guy was interesting.
Yeah, but you want to try to avoid the El Ramons
See.
out there.
The Irish author Jack defined a pilgrim experience as walking with nothing, carrying his goods on his back, relying on the kindness of others, and living off the land and suffering. The Canadian said, every generation takes advantage of comforts. Do we honor the poor by imitating them? Tom is silent. Why is he silent on that?
Well, at this point, Tom is still very much in himself. So he's a bit arrogant. He's not that interested in anything that these other people want to discover about their journeys. He's focused on his own. And he also considers it more valid, more serious, and more worthy than anyone else's at that time, which makes him a bit of a jerk.
Yeah. How do you really feel?
That's right, he's on a mission.
He's on a mission, and the rest are trying to figure out what they're doing, and so he's not really interested in discussing it.
Right.
Okay. Whoa! The Canadian. She struck poor Tom, even though she had started helping him. Still, old Tom is silent again. Why didn't he react when she struck him?
She realizes that she's kind of under some influence, and she is always angry too. She even admitted. So, between that and being controlled by the cigarettes,
But why didn't he react?
because he knows that she's being controlled by the cigarettes and anger, and so he realizes that, and he realizes that she really didn't mean it, because all she wanted to do was help him, and the reason because he dropped the box of ashes and she wanted to help him. So he know that she wasn't going to steal it or hurt it or hurt him or anything. So he said, you know what? He was probably thinking, you know what? I'm just not going to say anything. Let's just forget about it. And by that time, the guys who were away came back, and they wanted to basically, okay, let's just put it behind us. Forget about it right now. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Well, Tom gives the answer himself.
Yeah.
Because she asks him directly.
Well, I mean, about his mother?
Well, yeah, it's the way he was brought up, and it's It's his.
But that's
it's
later
his,
on.
It's his internal rule, and that's why he didn't react. Yeah.
That's later on.
Finally, we see why Miss Canada there, why she was there. Finally, she finally gets a sort of common ground with Tom. And as Catholics, we know there's never a good reason for an abortion, which is what she's trying to live with. But here, we actually see the suffering that goes with it. And I think sometimes we forget that. We're all ready to say, oh, what a terrible thing abortion is, and we forget most of these mothers suffer terribly. And in her case, she stated she was doing it because she didn't want her husband, it was bad enough her husband was beating her, she didn't want a baby to be beaten as well. Not that that justifies it, don't get me wrong, but we see the suffering that goes with it.
Well, she's emotionally fragile.
Oh, yeah. And she's hiding in those cigarettes. After that, sort of, you could call it a breakthrough. The wine flows and the layers start to get peeled back. And Tom kind of tunes out the talking. And then the wine and Tom start talking, or more accurately, unloading. This leads to a night in the local slammer. Why then did that change him? Why did the wine was doing the talk and he got carried away, was brutally honest, and then realizes after a night in the slammer.
This is to me, it seems a little bit like confession that things are being revealed. The girl had revealed her history. He's talking now, and everybody understands that his son, his ashes are what's in the box that he's carrying, and it's just there's some follow-up relief that goes after getting all this behind them.
If anything, it was a public service announcement to show you what happens when you drink too much.
Well, and I think he felt betrayed that Yost told everyone about what he was doing.
Yeah.
And that's something so private, and it opened up all the hurt, I think, of losing his son. And he took it out on the people he felt most comfortable with.
Especially with Jack, he took it out on Jack.
Well, on everyone, right? And and that means you only take it out on people that you know you feel comfortable with. That's what Thanksgivings are for. That's why Thanksgivings are so fun. You have wine and you have family, and people just unload.
Spare us, oh Lord. Okay. Okay. Thinking back to I can't get through it now. Thinking back to the, quote, Jewish priest, he stated that he was suffering from cancer, and he said that there are miracles along the way on the Camino. Have there been any miracles so far along the way for any of these characters, and have we actually seen the Lord out there on this trek?
I think the miracle comes at the very end. You know, they were always at odds, sort of, during the entire thing, and when when you thought they would get back together, they would disband again. And once they finally reached that cathedral, then they realized, you know what? We're sticking together. We're the new group here, and let's quote add on to the journey to get rid of the other ashes. So I think the miracle came at the very end. That scene where the giant incense.
Oh yeah.
We're
gonna talk about that.
That's like God just coming right over you. There's your Holy Spirit again, coming right over you, saying, "Here's your miracle. You four are meant to be together. This is your family."
Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
But
Discuss.
you think it was a miracle, like every little thing's a miracle that he decides to take the trip, the pilgrimage.
Right.
And all these little miracles along to meeting these people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a miracle. And all these, even Ramon, I mean, these These
And-
little miracles along the way.
The everyday miracles,
That's
yeah.
right.
And every time he saw a vision or whatever you want to call it of his
That's-
son,
Right.
I think it took off another layer of their dislike for each other, you know.
Miracles can come in many different ways.
That's true. You have to be ready for them. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I did. So if Tom is this fallen away, divorced Catholic, actually I guess he's widowed, isn't he? Who has lost a child, how come that wedding ring is still obviously on display?
Well, obviously Tom has trouble letting go of stuff. That's why he wanted to take Daniel with him on the trek to finish his journey, and possibly why he's still wearing his wedding ring. He's not ready to let go of things, and has trouble, or just doesn't do that easily, I should say.
I'll be honest, I
That's his
didn't notice
character.
it.
Yeah, I didn't either. Good eye.
Yeah. Well, yeah, everybody sees something different. So we're pretty far down the road now, and Tom is finally lightening up a little bit. Now, of course, after surviving the river, the backpack gets stolen by gypsies. The gang with him is they really have nothing nice to say about those gypsies. Was the Camino the place for those kind of attitudes?
Well, I mean, I guess you're still allowed to have an opinion.
Or were they just buying into stereotypes?
Well, maybe, but this also could be the codex that was referred to by Jack actually describes people being set upon by bandits even in the medieval days. So this might have been their tip to the Camino is not free of its dangers, and thieves are among the oldest of them.
Okay.
And there is in fact there are several stories described in the codex, but one of them is a group of pilgrims who's have their goods stolen by thieves, and Mary appears to them, and somehow their goods are returned to them. So there's a miraculous return of the things that were lost.
And if you're saying, is this a place? Is this what was supposed to be said on the Camino? Like, is there a place for this on the Camino? What you were saying before?
Yeah, talking down other people.
Yeah.
I mean.
Not if you're meaning that in a religious sense, you have to remember that at that point, especially because we didn't get everything revealed quite yet, not all of them were there for religious reasons. I mean,
That's true.
Joost from Amsterdam was there to lose weight. That has nothing to do with religion.
Yeah, but even with Joost, we find out that he's trying to save his marriage to a degree.
And Sarah was not necessarily there, at least we were meant to believe, for
Right.
religious. She was there to quit smoking.
Right.
And Jack, I mean...
There's attitude. Remember that dinner table where the Basque was saying something and the French said,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
you're
right.
wrong.
That's right.
They're all pilgrims and they're arguing.
That's true. That's true. So it turns out those pesky gypsies don't always fit the stereotype. And I know because they're in my bloodline. True. But how cool was it to experience essentially a culture, gypsy, within a culture, Basque, within a culture, Spain? And actually it may have been Galicia, which is actually, it's the Celtic part of Spain. And if you listen closely to one of those songs in the background, it only was a few bars, but you will not mistake the Irish kind of Celtic sound to it. Was the meeting between Tom and Ishmael more than just an interesting path crossing? Ishmael being the father of the little gypsy boy who stole his backpack.
Well, it's it's sort of the miraculous return of the lost item. Ishmael is this sort of mystical wise man character that just kind of appears, who is an everyday truck driver, but suddenly has all sorts of wise things to say about bringing up children and what Tom really ought to do at the end of the journey. And he seems to be he seems to know an awful lot for.
Well, he was also standing up for his people because he was tired of being stereotyped, and he certainly had a hand on the discipline of the child after what he did. Not to mention bringing all 4 of the pilgrims into his home for what he called an intimate party of dozens and dozens of people. I think it was kind of gave them brought back to their faith in human nature. I think. I mean, the kid was a kid, you know. For the first half, all Tom did was pull away. Pull away, be quiet, off by himself. Then you look up, now he's hugging Yost. How the heck did that happen? What started keeping the 4 of the pilgrims together?
Just the common experience and sharing their history and what they had before they came together. As they got to know each other, they found they had more in common than they did against each other.
I think it's me or the character Daniel, because they were all wondering what is keeping this guy so to himself and so which is a technical term. But now, since they all know, since Joost from Amsterdam told them all, now they realize that maybe they can get along much better, and they all share the pain now. Which and now that they know his pain, they open up their pains to him.
Right.
And so now they're all sharing stories, and they're all not laughing about that, but laughing about other things. And they realize that they need each other. So that's why you see that hugging scene, which is always nice.
It's kind of a strange phenomenon. I mean, I've met people on planes and told them stuff that I would normally tell people, or, you know, sometimes you get in a very intimate situation with a stranger and you might never see them again, or maybe you become lifelong friends. But it's kind of odd how those paths crossed, when they did and where they did.
But I think I agree with you, Dan. They saw each other's pains and each other's faults, and they accepted each other.
Exactly.
To be accepted when someone sees all your faults and your pain, I think that bonds. It's a bond. It's acceptance.
Yeah.
We see 3 monks walking through the town. 2 of them are flogging themselves, and 1 is carrying a cross, a very large cross. Then the next scene is Tom and we'll call them his monks, holding his walking stick over his shoulder, much like the monk with the cross. A coincidence? I think not. What do you think?
It's a beautiful movie. They really have a nice dramatic effect when they do that. Mm-hmm. And we haven't mentioned that throughout this picture it's beautiful scenery.
Oh, amazing!
As we go along here, so it's not dry conversation. It's a pleasant experience to see what's happening. Right. And good movie techniques here.
The Trinity.
Oh,
I saw like Jesus carrying the cross. Mm-hmm. Father, I don't know. I saw that as
so yeah, it's sort of that we all carry crosses, or and engage in
self-flagellation. That's right. Flogging.
In some sort of mortification. We're just sort of part of the pilgrimage. Although sometimes the Spanish take it to lengths that.
Right. Yeah, that's.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a Spanish thing. I can tell you this: I don't support that. I find it incredibly ridiculous, and frankly, no offense to the Spanish, wrong. But I didn't necessarily see a connection. It must have been, I won't say.
I'm sure there's a film term for it when you see one situation and then the very next
transpose.
It's
juxtaposition.
A similarity. That's what we call it. But I mean, it's. I wouldn't call it a tourist attraction, but I would call it something they just saw on the way. I didn't really get a connection.
Okay, that's okay.
Of course, I immediately thought of the absurd
No,
Monty Python. Was it?
Oh, no.
Was it Spanish Inquisition never saw it coming or something?
Yeah,
I know. Which is probably sure I'm not. It's just.
Okay, so let's get real here for a minute. You know, they've stayed in dormitories, they've camped out, they've, you know, El Ramon's hotel, all that. They finally get to this one place. Tom says, "I'll treat." Was staying at the fancy hotel. Was that just defeating all the trials and tribulations and everything and focus of doing the way? Was that kind of interrupting the whole, you know, meditation?
Well, you notice, first they went for all the fancy thing, ordering his laundry, ordering food, and what did they really want? Companionship.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think they realized they were staying at all these pretty sad places, but you know, they know what his profession was, and since they were close to the end, and by this time they had really bonded together, he was probably thinking, you know, this is pretty pricey. My treat. Let's do it. And
you know, they never tell us what time of year it is, nor how long they were actually out there. At least I missed it.
Wasn't it at the end? Was it November? Was it some weird?
But I don't. When did they
something
start?
about November.
We saw the when he
The stamp.
changed the stamp.
Oh, yeah,
And changed the date.
Yeah.
Go November.
Yeah, and they mentioned something about the end of the year, so
Right.
it would have been toward the
But do we know
latter
when they
half of the year.
started?
It seems like early fall, maybe, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because didn't he say took? Did he say 2 months?
The
So
police
the-
captain said it'll take you 2
2
months.
months.
It'll take
But
you
most
2
people, I think
months,
it's more like a month. But that's because Tom had no preparation,
and then when
no
he
training,
was talking
nothing.
to Sarah about how long it would take her
Yeah.
with her
Oh, yeah.
cigarettes,
That's
he
right.
said
6 months.
you'll finish by the end of the
Yeah.
year, and so you know, they're talking about when the end of the year is coming.
Right. So we finally learn why that police captain gave Tom the rock. Now, is it to symbolize, do you think, the pilgrims' efforts laid at the foot of the cross for now? And also at, you know, the final judgment? Or, I don't know, finally got some real live praying going on? And it's about time, I would say, that they were doing, because they brought out a prayer that went along with the rock at the time. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think they were laying down their efforts?
Just a long time to carry a rock. So it gets heavier all the time, so you could think about that. And the other things that you might be carrying that are emotions
And they're heavy too.
that fill the prayer.
Very good. Okay. How sad was it? The Irishman refers to the churches in Ireland as temples of tears. And it's true, though. I mean, they have an awful lot to answer for in Ireland, I'm sorry to say. The decades-old scandals, the overreach in power in that country, I mean, I believe it caused a backlash that led to the legalization of divorce, abortion, and gay marriage, and more in Ireland. Unfortunately, my Emerald Isle is no longer the last bastion of hope for Catholicism. Why did the Camino survive amongst the severe decrease of the church throughout Europe? Not just Ireland, but Ireland was the last to fall. But Europe has seen a decades-old decrease. So why do you think they've become temples of tears?
Well, that's two questions. One is, why did the Camino survive? And partly because it's a curiosity. So, you know, it's traveled by many who are not there, strictly speaking, for traditional pilgrimage, but as a, as a hike, to do it for bragging rights, to, you know, for any kind of
lose weight.
This body walk.
or, you know, for all sorts of personal reasons, as the movie described, none of which, as Ishmael says, has anything to do with religion. And at least outwardly. It may, but they don't know it themselves.
And your other point about the temples of tears thing, if we need any proof of what he said, listen to our last show, Spotlight. I mean, your proof for many people is right there. Because of things like that, huge article gets printed by a big paper. We saw the amount of calls at the end of that movie.
That's right.
That people
Talking about the church scandals.
the church scandals, and the amount of people that called in about that article was immensely.
It's a lot of tears.
Yeah, a lot of tears. So I can see, Jack's point. I can see how people support Jack's point.
Did you notice when they got him to go into the cathedral
He
at
cried.
the end, he shed his own tears.
Yeah.
And to me, that said, it's not the church; it's his faith that was regained. And that was to me when he was crying. I said, his faith is returned.
Right. I think so too. When they get there, they call them the diploma, but I guess it's called the Compostela. Is that right? You get a certificate at the end that you actually did it. And when the clerk stamps it and puts your name in the book, you're asked, why did you walk? And is it important that they ask you that? That you ask, why did you walk this?
Seems like a nice thing to ask.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd
to
ask
show the interest and the hospital, pay attention to the people that have.
Yeah, you're just not another traveler I'm
Participated.
going to stamp.
Yeah.
I'm interested in you. That was.
You've
Yeah.
made it to the end. Why'd you do it? I mean, it's a common thing, and when you get the diploma, you maybe want to say like, "Hey, this is why I did it."
But you notice they told the truth at the end.
That was just it. I think they ask you because it's hard for so many people to admit why it was. And when the guy with the stamp is looking you in the eye and say, why did you walk it? All of a sudden it's like, we're back in confession.
Confession,
Yeah.
right.
Right. It's good that you to ask you to say it out loud.
Right.
And at that point, you're not probably in a mood to avoid the truth.
No, you're stripped, you're tired, you're, burdened, and you're just shedding it right there. Getting back to our friend Joost, why is Joost the only one to approach on his knees in the cathedral as tradition dictates? All the rest of them went up, they touched the, whatever that was, that...
Statue.
The foot of the statue. The
Yeah.
foot of,
And then they went on in their own kind of. I think they were all went in their own separate ways for now because it was important and a moment. But Joost, despite all his other stuff, he's the only one that gets down on his knees and approaches the statue.
It's that moment of Yost, although he's like I said earlier, the stupid, ridiculous guy that Tom needed. He's the nice guy in the group. I mean, they're all nice people. They all had their fun and wonderful side, but Yost deep down is the good-hearted one.
Right. He's the one you think is, he's the Falstaff, he's the good old Charlie, and you find out how deep he is, that he was there. And
I think it was kind of the same reaction as Jack with the tears.
right.
The return of his faith, perhaps, or at least opening up and saying, "Here I am. Can we get back on track?"
And he walked on his knees, and the whole trip he was walking on for his stomach, right?
Yeah.
True.
Well, yeah, he was truly awed by the whole experience at the end, and while all along the journey, didn't really confess to having those sorts of feelings.
Right.
So it was all just to lose some weight.
Right.
So they go to the Mass like you're supposed to at the end in the cathedral. Now, incense purifies. We know that. I hope I pronounced this properly. That was one hulking thurible. I think that's how you say it. The vessel that they, we're used to one that you could hold in your hand, and this must have been 4 foot high and was going the whole length on the rope. So as the incense was going over them and helping to purify the mission, did each person find what they needed at that point?
Well, I'm just imagining. Can you imagine the smell that thing was producing?
No, I can't. But
no, I think it goes back to that one point I mentioned before. I mean, the incense was maybe having the incense flow through the air. There's the Holy Spirit maybe a little bit, and it's trying to just bless them and tell them you four were meant to be together.
Because they all look relaxed and smiling at this point, and I don't want you four to ever leave each other's side. You're supposed to be together. Plus, it's I don't want to call it a tourist attraction, but it's certainly a a landmark, an icon,
a destination.
Definitely something to see. It was amazing. Okay, so they make it to the cathedral, but for Tom, it's not over. And he said, and so why does he need to go all the way to the ocean? Couldn't he have, quote, left Daniel right at the cathedral? Because that was Daniel's goal, I think. Original goal.
Oh, I took it. He put Daniel's ashes in the ocean because Daniel wanted to see the world. And once he's in the ocean, whoever the currents will take him,
ooh,
he'll see the world.
Very good.
Very good.
I like that. So our last scene is next we see a much more relaxed Tom in some exotic city, Morocco or someplace. What's up with that?
Well, I mean, it's clearly he's living a little bit more the way his son wanted to live, and so it's as though in traveling with his son, he learned something from him.
And that scene, I almost thought it was his son. You first take the face, because you just see this, and he's smiling. It almost looks like Emilio, and then I realized, oh no, it's his father.
Yeah, well, he finally gets it.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they didn't get enough blessing from that incense, because I just said they were meant to stay together, and where'd the other three go? They're gone.
This film was inspired by Emilio Estevez's own son, Taylor. It started in 2003 as a project when Taylor, at the time 19 years old, and Sheen traveled the pilgrimage route. Taylor, who served as an associate producer on the film, had driven the length of the Camino with his grandfather. Wait a minute, driven it? On the way, he met the woman who would become his wife. Thus, the Camino held special meaning for Taylor. After the trip, a series of discussions started between Sheen and his son for a movie about the Camino de Santiago. Exploring the universal themes of loss, community, and faith, he saw parallels with the characters of the film. The Wizard of Oz, which, amazingly, you mentioned at the end of the movie. Yes, he saw parallels with the characters of the film of The Wizard of Oz. The script took 6 months just to get the first draft. According to the opening credits, the story is also based on selected stories from Jack Hitt's book, Off the Road, a modern-day walk down the pilgrim's route into Spain, from 1994. Filming took 40 days. Estevez had a very small crew and shot with available light. Nighttime sequences were filmed by candle and firelight. Very unusual in these productions.
It's amazing he was able to afford Martin Sheen. That's
amazing. With church leadership opposed to allowing the crew to shoot inside the famous cathedral in Santiago de Compostela, Estevez said he took a leap of faith and asked everyone on set to pray for access. And it worked, claimed Sheen. The crew was given permission just 48 hours before they were scheduled to shoot the scenes, which they felt were critical to the film. So I guess we did have a miracle on the Camino. Sheen originally suggested Michael Douglas or Mel Gibson for the lead role, but Estevez had written the main character's role specifically for his father. Aside from the main actors, those seen on screen are real pilgrims from all over the world. One episode in the film involves a group of actual Romani people from Burgos. It's been great going down this way with you. I hope your way is easy and the road rises to meet you. May the angels protect you and heaven accept you. This is Jean Verhoeven for Scripts and Scriptures. Here's a bonus feature from my other show, Verhoeven's Sake. Enjoy. Oh, Verhoeven's Sake. Reality TV shows are an abundant genre these days. Some are just soap operas, others are voyeurism, and some can be exploitive. There are two shows I've screened lately when surfing the dial. They both deal with folks living normal lives through the lens of a physical challenge. Unless we've lived with a family member with distinct limitations, we probably don't comprehend their spectrum of disability and ability. Both are groups that I've noticed that just in my lifetime are slowly but surely disappearing. Little people and Down syndrome folks are finding themselves caught up in a eugenic-style prognosis. If just a few minds could be changed, then I say a real catalyst would be the shows The Little Couple and Born This Way. The first deals with a married pediatrician and businessman who traveled the world to adopt their children, who are also little people, and the day-to-day challenges of a group of entrepreneurs, college students, fiancés, musicians, and soul searchers who all happen to have Down syndrome. Are those spotlighted the exceptions? Maybe. Are these TV stars extremely high functional? Perhaps. But just like everything, more knowledge can change a decision. Eliminating myths can bring facts to life. Exploring facts can evolve a choice in a different direction. Can a TV show save a life? Tune in, and you decide. I'm Jean Verhoeven.